Okay, cool. I can see Connecticut, US. And of course, good morning from here, all the way from down under Australia. Please put in the chat box where you're joining us from. That would be excellent. Right, Ajibola Oduleye from Canada. Thank you so much for joining, bro. Thank you. Sheyi Awuni from Calgary. Thank you. Chidinma Hiki from Lagos, Nigeria. Amos from Dubai. And of course, we got Bankole from Abuja, Nigeria. Thank you. Thank you. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. Let's know where you're joining us from, and then we can start in earnest. I think in another minute or so, we're going to start. Of course, Eric, thank you for joining from Ghana. That is excellent. We have representation all across Africa, all across the world, which is what we stand for as a community. So I want to say thank you. Thank you to everyone who has joined, especially our returning community members, not forgetting our new members as well. Thank you for joining. And I know that as we go ahead, more people are going to join. So keep it coming. If you have not told us where you're joining from, please do that on the chat message. All right. I think we'll go. We are Agile, and so we want to keep to time. We don't want to keep you here for much more than an hour, and so let's go straight into it. Now, as usual, let's start with why. Why are we here? Just to remind us, we are a community of Agile practitioners that are committed to promoting the real value of lean and agile practices. Of course, we look at the freedom that discipline agile promises, and then we uphold it. So we come up every month to really talk about how we can develop a practice. We look at organizations and individuals in Africa with an interest in developing their agile and lean practices. And of course, if you're here and you have been here before now, please feel free to invite your folks at work, your friends, so that they can really get to partake in this community. So we continue to bring, knowledge in Scrum, Lean, Kanban, Safe, Lean practices, Lean startup, and so many other Lean Agile practices. Things that are relevant, especially from practitioners like myself, like Patrick, and other people that are here, Shegun, and we try to really roll it out across our community so that you too can go to your organizations and do amazing stuff using the Agile frameworks that we promote. Okay, so not forgetting that this is brought to you by Pitt Lauren Consulting. That is the organization that I work with. We are also an authorized training partner with PMI. Of course, we're practitioners. This is what we do at work. This is what we do every day. So, they're going to take one. Talking about today's event. Today, we bring Olusegun Soyaolu, and he will be discussing the imperative of architecting the agile way with us. Before now, we've always been talking about the theory of the agile practice. We've always been really laying the foundation on how to be agile. But today, we want to get to, the doing side. We want to get to the technical side, and that's why we want to look at how we can work in the architect, our solution architecting and stuff like that. How do we do that in an agile way? I'm not going to be the one to do that today. Shegun is going to help us, but let me quickly introduce Shegun to you. Olusegun Soyaolu is an enterprise architect with over 15 years of practice in different industries, including IT and telecommunications. His roles cut across system integration, solution analysis, of course, design, business analysis, tech consulting, sales support, project management, as well as people management as well. He has led so many major digital transformations in design and implementation. Of course, I know him in the telecom sector because both of us really work hard in really making sure that we roll out the telecoms, platforms in sub-Saharan Africa, and in his role as both solution architect and project manager, he did just that. In addition to that, he's a certified TOGAF trainer, and he brings with him a lot of expertise in facilitating enterprise architecture and training across Africa, Asia, Australia, Europe, and North America. Of course, his audiences cut across different, industries such as banking, manufacturing, government, pharmaceutical organizations, IT, telecoms, and so on and so forth. We are very honored to have you, Olusegun, today to really share your expertise with us, especially on how to do Agile with architecture, solution architecture. So I think I will hand over to you so that you can lead us into today's event. But before we do, if you have not put where you're joining us from so that we can get to know you, please chat with us. Let us know where you're joining us from, and then we can go straight into it. I just want us to keep communicating behind the scene, and then we can get. And one last thing, please, anytime you have any question, do not hesitate to put it in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat while Segun continues the conversation, and then we'll deal with your questions after the session. There will be a 5 to 10 minutes window to deal with those questions. All right, over to you, Segun.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Yeah, good evening to those in Africa, United States. Good afternoon, I guess. Other part of the world, that's good morning to you. It's an honor to be here and to be among this community. I've been here once or twice before. I mean, been here to learn, and hopefully today as well. I'm learning. Agility is about learning. When you talk, you learn. When you practice, you're learning. So that's what we're here for today. I hope you can see my slides. You just give me a thumbs up. You can see my slide. All right, great. I can see you, Pete. And thanks once again, Pete, for this opportunity. I'm really honored to be here. I'm not taking it for granted. And to the entire community of the disciplined Agile learning community, please, thank you very much for having me here. And yes, as Pete said, yeah, maybe a little bit of a difference from what we're used to doing is what we're doing today, but not completely different. It's still about, having an Agile team and having different practitioners and expertise working together in a team. So we want to see one aspect of this, Agile team community. So that's what we're here to, look at today. And yes, it's a webinar, so we can have a, conversational chat. But then the chat box is there. Please feel free to, drop whatever thoughts come through your mind, question, comment, and all that. We have a few minutes at the end of the session to look through that. So thank you very much once again, and we go right into the event, right? So just by way of introduction again, what we're looking at today, this is the outline what we're going to be looking at. What is it that we're talking about, the imperative of architecting the Agile way? Yeah, we know a bit about what agility is. Well, maybe what is it about architecture? Why is it so important? I mean, in an Agile environment, in Agile practice, this is what we're going to be looking at. What are the roles of architects in an Agile team? How does Agile architecture support and enhance, Agile delivery? How can it add value, in a lot of ways? That's what we're looking at. And in the course of this presentation, you'll permit me to do a kind of a freestyle. So I may be using some, terminologies in Scrum, in SAFe, in, just permit me to go freestyle, right? But our focus is how does architecture, support any agile practice. So if I use the terminologies that you're used to, and I mean, maybe flip it over in another slide, just permit it to be so for now, just for us to be able to, get our understanding enriched. So that's our outline. And at the end of the session, we're going to have a quick Q&A session through, as we go on. Okay, so right there, what is architecture? So we're talking about architecture. I mean, you've seen the topic of discussion, the imperative of architecting the agile way. So what's architecture? Don't want to take it for granted to say, yeah, we know it, I know what architecture is. But let's just, understand that context. And we're going to, in the next few slides, we're going to put some contextual understanding into what it is. So sometimes we think we have an idea, but a lot of times as well, when we see the context, then it becomes clearer. So according to the IEEE, that's the Institution of Electronic and Electrical Engineers in the US, defined architecture as the fundamental organization of systems embodied in all the components that makes up the system, how these systems interact and relate with themselves, right? These components, these elements as are put together with due consideration to the environment where these systems and components would operate, and also consideration to the principles that guides their evolutions and their design. So in looking at an architecture, it would not just be for you to say, okay, I see a design or I see a diagram. So that's the first bubble I want to bust. So an architecture is not a diagram. It's not, it's not the network diagram or the system or the process diagram. That's not the architecture. It's a part of the architecture. So when you're looking at an architecture, it must embody the components that you put together to realize this system. So this diagram in itself, and also how do these components interact with themselves, right? How do they enhance the full realization of the feature that the architecture supports, right? Then you also have to consider the environment. So the environment we speak to, what are the process guidelines that are put in place for these systems to operate, right? What are the regulatory concerns? For some of us that may work in banking or telecoms, yeah, so in some of us that work in banking or telecoms, regulations guides, how we evolve systems, our products and services. So how do these also come into how you structure your systems? So that's the environment. And as well, we also will consider the principles that support this architecture from evolving, because architecture in itself will not be static. Remember, we're talking about agility, and we're going to talk about agile in the next few slides. So how will this system evolve, from where it is now to its future state? Peradventure, there is a change or there is a need, for a revamp or, system upgrades and all that. So that's what you look at architecture, as architecture to be. And it could also be considered as, having a full documentation of the constituents of your systems, your processes, the detailed plan of how you implement the detailed guides on how you implement or how you go through your development process, like an handshake between design and implementation. So this is what kind of a structure of an architecture, what architecture is all about. The next few slides will give us a bit of a pictorial clarification, which will make it more understandable. So why do we talk about architecture? Like I said earlier, it's not just diagrams. It's not just the drawings you see, that someone put together. Even in the traditional architecture where you see buildings, the building, the diagram on the two-dimensional diagrams of a floor plan and all that, it's not what makes the architecture itself. A lot of other components. So why is it important for us to have an architecture in an organization, in an enterprise, or in an agile environment? Gives us an opportunity to help it helps us to accelerate the ability, to provide independent releases of, to meet business objectives. When we talk about agility, we talk about being able to produce releases at intervals of time that are beneficial, that have business business benefit. So architecture helps us to be able to do that. We talk about digital transformation. I'm sure we probably have heard about digital transformation, and how do we transform digitally, without a guardrail, without a guidance, without more like a hand holding through the process of transforming digitally. So that's part of what architecture give you like a guide on how you evolve. If you're transforming digitally, digital transformation could be, maybe migrating from on-prem to cloud, or you're just changing from your, you're used to be legacy system solution services, you're going into digitalizing your systems, your processes. So the guardrail to help you move from that state of where you were to where you need to be. That's one of the reasons why architecture is important, and more importantly as well, it helps us to align, our organization's information technology systems to meet business needs. You see, now a lot of organizations, get a jump on the bandwagon of new technology. You hear new technology, you jump on it. Yeah, we need to go on the cloud. Oh yeah, we heard about the metaverse. Oh, we need to go on the metaverse. Architecture process and architecture helps you to, to think back and say, okay, do we need it? Aligning what you're gonna your IT procurement, your technology procurement to align with your business objective. I'll give you a quick example here. Some of us in North America may have heard about, the Klingon-Cohen Act. It was an act of the U.S. Parliament, 1996, I thereabout, whereas, all the departments of government used to procure information technology, resources, and it comes in on the annual budget, right? You're purchasing computers, purchasing operating systems, purchasing application software year in, year out. And there came a time, one of those sessions where they had to defend their budget. One of the members of Congress said, oh, wait a minute. I mean, we've been seeing this recurring requirement in your budget every year. So to what end is this? So there was the first time that question was raised, and then they couldn't really, defend that budget. So that resulted into an inquiry into the budget of all the departments and ministries in the U.S. government. And then it was discovered that, they kept on purchasing new technology equipment, new IT solutions without using them. So this act was, was passed to ensure that becomes a guide as to how, IT procurement aligns with business objective. And as a matter of fact, this was the act that brought about the introduction of, the office of the CIO in organizations. Excuse me. So that's why architecture is important. So let's look at this quick perspective. We're talking about architecture, right? And sure, a number of us may have seen this kind of diagram before, right? This is some kind of network diagram with some connecting cables to switches. And then, needless to say that this is not well done. Imagine something happened and, you don't even know where a switch 1, 2, 3, or 4 is. Let's say there's a problem on one of the ports on a switch. How are you going to remove the cable or change the cable or something like that? You can see that. And you can see also that all the switch racks are virtually filled up. So if tomorrow there's a need to expand, there's no plan for expansion here. This is one one scenario that you see. Now consider the second scenario. I mean, what you can see that this is a scenario where you have the same cabling connection, but you can see how neatly packed these cables are. There are rooms here for expansion. So there's there are rooms for expansion if you have to expand, and you can see how neatly packed. You can see the ports clearly. You can see where all the cables and all the wires are going into, right? They are very, very clear. So like you can see all this, you can see everything well neatly packed. So that's so this is a perspective of two systems, two environments. And if you look at this too, I mean, you don't need a soothsayer to say the diagram on the right, fits a system that can evolve easily, that can evolve, in a fast way without disrupting current, the current system provision, right? Whilst the diagram on the left is one that you really would not want to, I mean, to evolve or to do anything on the left, you probably will have to tear down and then rebuild. And that's not the context that, Agile preaches. So, so this context takes us to look at, architecture in itself. I had explained briefly what architecture is and the importance. So we're looking at each of these contexts now. So if you look at this diagram, look at this building. It's a small hut, right? Probably one room. I mean, a few persons will sleep in this hut. It was born out of necessity, right? Maybe a set of journeymen, herders, traveling long distance, and then they got to a place they needed to just have a roof over their head. All they need to do is, guys, let's get this mods together, get a few, get some water, get thatched roof, and then put it in. You probably will get it done within one day. So simple, so with less, less consideration to what happens tomorrow. I mean, whilst building this, the only consideration is get a roof over my head. We need to sleep here. We need to dwell here for a number of days. I'm not sure you're thinking about expansion here, or you're thinking of, okay, sewage system, or, security and all that. Just get something done. You see this happen, when you draw a parallel in tech. You probably see a startup that just add a quick need, and then you just start up, and then you get a website, maybe like a fintech that has one service, just start up, and then, no consideration has been given to, okay, what happens tomorrow if another need arises? I mean, if you start we start building multiple huts that we cannot, that we cannot connect together, things like that. So that's a context of a simple, a simple system that I probably would not talk about. Think about architecture. And then you see this a log cabin. It looks more, a bit more fanciful than the other, right? So a bit more consideration is given here. You can see, you can see the just quick one. You can see, so a consideration is given here, maybe for a chimney, right? So when winter comes, probably get some, get some warmth, right? And then, a bit more fanciful. So you will have done a bit more, given a bit more consideration, a bit more elaborate design of this building compared to the ones you have on your left, right? And as we continue to look at how systems evolve, then you see, compared to the first and the second diagram, this is a bit of a complex building, right? We will have been well designed. This building will not be standing without regulatory approval, approving the structural design, the floor plans, and all that. This will have been painstakingly done, to get to this point. And then, you can see that the buildings got maybe well conduited, pipings, electrical, and all that. Well done. So this will you have a better consideration given to architecture, because you cannot afford to just, you can't start this kind of building without having some framework or some approvals, guiding how you're going to evolve this architecture. And then you look at these, look at the next diagram. This is a diagram of a city, right? A city that looks, it looks a bit like a city that is well planned, right? You can see the roads, networks, you can see the recreation areas, you can see all those things that, make the city, become livable. So a city such as this, right, would not have been put together or designed without consideration to so many things. You would not have designed a city without a blueprint, right? There will be, you can see so many of these kind of houses will be in the city. There will be, cinemas, there will be stadiums, there will be so many big, small communities in together, and in putting this together, there needs to have been a plan, right? You hardly will have a city without a plan. I know some of us in my part of the world, I'm in Lagos, Nigeria currently anyway. Some of us may say, oh, we know of some cities without plans, but we know what happens to those cities. So what we're looking at here is how you make system works, how we make processes work, without having issues, without bottlenecks. That's what a plan or an architecture design does, helping you to be able to build a city such as this, without issues, no issues with your drainage. The road networks are well distributed, electricity and all utilities are well planned. And if there's a need tomorrow for city expansion, it will just be following template and then evolving the expansion, without breaking the city, without disrupting the peace of the, of the city, and then that will be seamless. So that's what, the context of the need for an architecture, so that you're evolving, you are not breaking the existing system. The existing system continues to work, providing services and producing value, whilst you're also increasing and extending value delivery, to your future needs. So that's why architecture is important. And then we know also that as we go on, we have, so complexity gets introduced to systems, to solutions, excuse me, to services, to products that we offer. And as this complexity and introduced, complexity could be as a result of sizes, right? Maybe you have a business that has scaled up to maybe 1,000 customers, right? And then you're seeing growth that is going to 10,000, and then, to 10,000, to 50, to 100,000. As you're scaling up, as your customer base is increasing, it's going to start putting pressure on your existing systems, facilities, and and processes that you have. So you have to start thinking of evolving, right? So how to guide you through evolving from a 1,000 customer base to 10,000 to 20 to 50 to 100,000 is what architecture process guides you through. Size up and scaling up. And also, changes occurs, right? Changes occurs, and so when changes happen, how do you respond to change? So a kind of looking at response to, your degree of responsiveness to change. Without having an architecture in place, then you probably will struggle. Change dynamics that I see around, in recent times. Some of us probably have heard about the social media changes that are happening now. Facebook, the Twitter, the Facebook of this world, the Twitters of this world, they are tech companies, right? And you're hearing Facebook looking at their current model of offering, having everybody has a free Facebook account. You run adverts on Facebook, they make money off advert, but they're seeing to some extent that this model may be, hitting the end of the road, and they started thinking about evolving to the metaverse, right? So that's dynamics of change. And as that is happening, you have to be able to, evolve your current system to support such. Or Twitter that, Elon Musk bought Twitter, and then he's talking about, oh, our model has to change. Our model cannot be free, then you have to be subscribing. Some things will have to change. The subscription module may not have been built into the Twitter system currently, but because it's going to change now due to, changes in the environment, advert revenue is dwindling, you have to continue to support the platform. So how do you get revenue? Let's put subscription module in place. So if you have not designed the Twitter system to be able to have a modular approach to evolution, then you're going to start having some challenges. So that's some of its dynamics to change. I mean, talk about cloud adoption, moving to cloud, artificial intelligence is all around us. Or look at what happened during the pandemic. Zoom, as a case in point. How many of us used Zoom before the pandemic? Maybe a handful. But during the pandemic, they had to scale at a very high speed for them to be able to meet the demand, because growth was, just on their neck. So that's part of why we need architecture to guide us through, so that we don't get stuck, when imminent changes happen, because changes will happen. And these days, the dynamics of change is so quick and so fast. Things are changing, so quickly now that you have to be able to catch up with that change, right? So that's why it's important to have some kind of architecture, design in place. Okay, so just briefly looking at some of the architecture design options we have. I'll just talk about this briefly. So say big upfront design, used to be that when you have a solutions to deploy, to develop, you take all your time, to consider all the nitty-gritty of everything you need to put together. I put up a huge design with a huge, volumes of design document. I've seen in some places at work, the design document could be up to 200 and 250 pages before you even start. And then you start your development, you start seeing that, considerations that you had even given, in the course of design had changed along the line. So that's like a big upfront design where you have to consider everything. You've taken so much time to design. And most often, by the time you start deploying, implementing or developing, you see that a lot of things have changed. So in this kind of approach, you probably want to consider all the scopes, and you say, okay, maybe where you have scope very clear. All the scopes well captured. Well, I haven't seen in practice where you have all your scope well captured, right? And then there's another option, called the emergent design, whereas you make design to be adaptive in the sense that it's a process where you learn in the process of evolving your architecture design, because at the beginning you do not know everything. It's highly impossible that you have a full view of everything. Even understanding the requirement of your stakeholders evolves over time. So learning as you go, as you continue to evolve your architecture, and then improving. And as you're doing that, you're also trying to put the solution out as releases that can be used alongside. And then the third option is called the just enough upfront design. So with this approach, you're saying, yes, I do not have a view of everything that this solution or this product will require to go live at the end of the day. But I want to put a framework in place that will guide me, in evolving this architecture. So you are taking an element of the first design option, the big upfront design, and also taking a part of the adaptive learning approach to design. So this kind of design, fitly, fits in perfectly, or maybe not perfectly, at least to a very large extent, to agile delivery. And that's what we're going to be looking at. And you will see us talk about minimum viable architecture. I mean, some of us that are agile enthusiasts, we understand the MVP, which we're going to talk about, the minimum viable product. So it's the minimum viable architecture that produces the minimum viable product. Okay, so now what do we, when we talk about agile, what is it? Like we've seen in previous slides, dynamics of change, scaling because of issues of complexity, and then, and sizes increasing and all that. And we have to continue developing. We cannot wait for change to overrun us. And that's where the thought of agile comes in, an approach that can help us, develop capability faster as changes is happening, as we're seeing, a lot of things, pressure on, technology, change, increment, right? An approach, that works now will be for us to be able to evolve faster, deliver capabilities, faster, right? And, one thing quickly I also want to mention is the fact that it's important for this to happen because, competition is rife. So you want to make sure that you take the first mover advantage. So you don't want to wait till you build the entire, skyscraper before you start offering prospective customer to, to let in and to for you to start making your money. So you want to get in on time, start with maybe 3 floors, and then you keep building alongside. So delivering small but consumable increments. These are some of the critical constituents of agility, in delivery. Minimum viable product, product increment, as safe we call it, continuous delivery of value, it has to be, and also being able to accommodate changing requirement. Like I said earlier, that requirements are not, you don't have a scenario where you have all your requirements and scope very clear from the onset. So the flexibility to accommodate changes in requirements, these are part of what Agile is all about. That's delivery. Now, architecture agility, architecture agility, right? What is this about? Right, how with setting having a set of value practices, and collaboration that supports evolutionary designs and evolutionary design. So it's evolving, producing at intervals of time, minimum viable architecture. It supports continuous evolution over time, and at every point in time as you're evolving and delivering your MVPs, right? Your current deliverables and features that your system has does not suffer. So your current users are not impacted whilst you are evolving new features, in your in your delivery, as well as incremental architecture as well. It supports the collaboration and design simplicity. I'm going to show us a diagram in the next few slides. It enables, for deployability, testability, and releasability. So there's a place for quality assurance, ensuring quality assurance, and also ensuring that as you are delivering, as you have continual delivery, we also ensure that at the shortest possible time. That's why we'll be we talk about sprints, right? We talk about sprints so that you have a short period of time that you have to deliver minimal value. So that's what we look at with agile architecture. So now we're talking about architecture and agility. What are the roles, right? That's what we want to look at in the next few slides. What are the roles of architects in an agile team? Agile team, say if we talk about agile release trains, right? What are the roles of architects in an agile team? Does an agile team need an architect? I mean, questions that we may want to find answers to. Does an agile team requires an architect, or is doing architecture compatible with agile development? These are questions that do come to my mind, and I'm sure some of us may be asking ourselves this question. And yeah, so the answer to the questions is on this slide. So this is a scenario of an organization that has an architect. The architect is the man, at the top there. So in this case, this architect is commanding and is controlling the affairs, right? And these are the dev team. The architect in this case is designing, and it's kind of, let me use it for the want of any further way of describing it, forcing design down the throat of the developers. Just take it, develop. That's what the architect is doing in this team, right? It's called an agile team in code. And then we have another team, right? The architect, you can see the architect is not in a command and control scenario, but is a part of a team. So there's a relationship, there's an engagement, amongst the team, the architect, the developer, the scrum master, the product owner, and everyone, interacts, to learn, to evolve, and to give feedback. You can see the arrows, showing us the feedback. And we have another scenario where, you do not have a dedicated architect, but you have some personnel within the agile team, wearing the cap of an architect at some point in time. So architecture is done by some of the team members. And then you have this other scenario. Yeah, we've got the agile team. We're all architects. Don't worry. We know how to do it. We're an agile team, but yes, we know architect. I mean, we are doing it. So you can't pinpoint someone wearing that cap at any point in time. So these four scenarios, I mean, you can see that, I mean, you're saying that you have an architecture practice that is supporting your agile practice, but we can't really see someone, taking that role up, to guide, to support, to get feedback, and to ensure that your system is future-proof and foolproof. So that's what you see on the extreme right, where you have the implicit architecture scenario. So we're looking at these four use cases. You can't say you have an architecture, right? You cannot choose not to have an architecture. That's the bottom line. From what we are saying, even as a startup, you have one. It could be a small hut, but you've got one. But you can choose to make a conscious decision, about the architecture you have, how you choose your team. If you want to have a dedicated architect, or you want to have a blend of, experts supporting your architecture project, but you cannot, for any reason, say you do not have an architect taking up a role, within your agile team. It could spell some doom, and we're going to see in the next slide. So recommendation will be scenario 2 and 3. Will be one that you will see architects being involved in the agile team to support and guide evolution of, product, supporting the developers as well. Okay, now looking at iterations, we talk about iterations and sprints in agile, and the first iteration, you can call it iteration 0. You will see an architect playing a very important role, engaging with the product owner. The product owner has the initial epics, has the initial thoughts of what needs to be designed, and I mean the end product, and also some of the thoughts about the user stories. So the architect's responsibility is to help crystallize the product owner's thoughts, into distillable requirements, identifying all the characteristics that the epics and the stories, has, how you can, start defining the components that will help put them together, then architecture diagram. Recall I said earlier, architecture diagram is not the architecture itself. All the entire component we're looking at here, the characteristics of this product, decisions that needs to be made, maybe based on regulatory concerns and other policies, within the organizations, and also risk assessment as well. And as the iteration goes on, iteration 1, 2, 3, till when the solution is deployed, you see the interaction of the architect, with the product owner on one hand, and also the development team on the other hand. And that's where you see, and if you look at the arrow, it's always bi-directional. That mix of a team, and the role of architect in the team is what we're seeing, right, from iteration 0 through to the end of the iteration. Okay, so that's so quick one. I'll just briefly to this slide. When we talk about architects, there are different types of architect. We will have in architecture, an agile team, the business architect, the data application and technology architect, and then you will see so these 4 types of architect, you can look at them from enterprise perspective, as someone that has an end-to-end view of the entire value stream on the organization, or a solutions architect that will just, its focus is on just the systems that you put together, all the systems you put together to realize, your features or your solutions, as well as the systems architect, you will call a specific domain architect. So it could be a security architect, could be a Java architect, for example. So it's specific. So these are the type of architect you will see within an agile team. And then, so in looking at agile and delivery, right? In looking at agile and delivery, you will see a question about, can the delivery be agile when there is no agile architecture? So that's what the answer to the question we're doing. So you have your architecture in architecture practice, you call it the current state, your as-is systems architecture with all the capabilities. And as you start evolving, from the first sprint, what you do in the sprint, you need to, your first sprint is supposed to achieve a first architecture design, which will produce a number of capability increments. So 2 capability increments, and that gives you your first MVP. So this MVP will be useful, can be used by your customer, can earn you revenue. And in the course of evolving your architecture and your delivery through the second sprint, you evolve your transition architecture too, which is like an incremental capability from the first one, which will also provide capability, which is the second MVP in this case, as a minimum viable product. And then the third sprint, right, yields the final architecture, so which gives you the target architecture, which produces the final product. So that's how you're saying architecture and agile MVP. So the transition architecture, you can call it the MVA, the minimum viable architecture, which produces the MVPs, the minimum viable product. Okay, and then you will for those of us that have been in this tech space for a long time, we call this WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. So I call this in architecture WYDA. What you design is what you build. So you see this design. This is a requirement to a need for us to have something to be able to move us from one location to the other. And then someone thought, okay, I'll design 1 wheel, I'll design 2 wheels, and then I'll put some kind of body on this wheel, and then put some steering and then engine, and it start moving. This could take about 5 years. But then look at this design approach. I need to move. I got, what do we call this? That's a skating board, right? A skating board will move you from one place to the other with some level of ease, right? And then your next level of design, I need a scooter, right? Very much from one place to the other. Then a bicycle will be faster than a scooter. Then you get a bike, and then a car, that can run at 120 or 150 kilometers per hour. So this is how you see evolution of your design. Having an agile mindset in your design to help you deliver minimum viable product at steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that's what Agile architecture is all about. So, so I'm rounding up. I know we're running out of time. So what's the congruence? So where does Agile and agility and architecture, where do they meet, right? Architects, like I've said earlier, they work closely with the product owner, the business owner, the product managers to help realize, current and future business goals. The objective is to meeting the goals and the objective of the organization. It helps in aligning, architecture with business strategy to accelerate business objective. Architect plays those key roles, in an agile environment, like we saw in the previous slides. And most importantly, agile is about learning. I heard what someone was discussing earlier when we came in today, that learning cycle continues. So the agile, the architect, play that leader role, in modeling a learning environment, between the agile team and a development team, architecting, midwifing, and also to the product owner. So that's where the congruence is. So I think that should be the end of my slide. I know it's quite a quick one. So that's the end of my slide. Thanks for listening in. And so this is where the Agile and Architecture team meets. So Pete, you want to go ahead and check if there are thoughts, questions?
Thank you, Shegun. That was really very informative. Thank you so much, and thank you for really bridging the gap between Agile and architecture. Actually, constructing the bridge for us. Thank you so much. I was monitoring some of the questions that are coming in, and I've been able to deal with some of them. And of course, Patrick also has really also added quite a number of insights into some of them. Now, there was a question, that slide you were talking about, the context and the need for architecture, where you're describing the buildings, how they go from the hot straight to a well-designed, suburb. Agogo Samuel was asking, how far can we imbibe and envision these, right? And it did mention it come up with a comment that it certainly involves or evolves, maybe that was want to say, with time. So would you want to add maybe one or two things? Because it's easy to start something, but envisioning and imbibing it is another case. Anything you want to say on that?
Yes, thank you very much. And that's a very, very good question. But that's one of those things that organizations really grapple with. Being able to see, I would say, being able to see the end from the beginning, right? And that requires, when I showed us another slide, I showed the different types of architect solutions, system architect, and enterprise architect. So an enterprise architect will stand in that gap. Helps, he has all it takes to be able to help have a view of the future, right? It may not be so clear, and it won't be so clear, but you will have an idea of where you are. You know what you want at this point in time, but you can have with experience, and it comes with a lot of experience as well. And that's why you have enterprise architects, coming in at that space, to help envision what the future, could be, or better still, may not be able. It may just future-proof the current design. So, for example, the hut will not probably be built in just that way that the next thing you expect in that hut is for it to be pulled down and rebuilt again. So you may factor in evolution into it, such that you don't need to pull it down. You may just need to evolve and build another one, connect it, raise it up, and all that. I don't know if that provides some clarity to that question.
Actually, absolutely, it does. Absolutely, it does. And in fact, and I think that also explains one of the next question, which is from Bukola Abodunde, which I've also tried to mention that the MVP slide explain and clarify that question. But I just want to make sure that we're able to meet Bukola's expectation. So Bukola is really looking at the question around how do I start implementation without fully completing a grid architecture, So, when you're talking about,
Yeah,
incremental architecting,
yeah.
now that's where our question is coming from.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's a very good question as well, and I mean that's one of those things that traditional architecture, being used to traditional architecture, kind of limit us to be able to do. We're used to having to gather all requirements, gather every requirement that could take you weeks, months. I mean, some maybe years, and then before you can you put that design together. So with incremental architecture, so let me give an example. So I have a scenario where a client wants to build so it's a client that has let me call it on-prem, departmental stores, physical stores across the country, and they have a thought to move, to move online, to become an e-commerce company, right? So to evolve into an e-commerce company, I mean, you will not want to sit down and build a website, integrate the payment platform, put all the shopping and all the logistic integration to it before you say, oh yeah, I'm now an e-commerce company. You could probably start with building a website with a list of catalogs, right? That's a minimum viable architecture. So your customers could say, okay, let me do a search of what they have and the store before I go, right? It starts from there. And then afterwards, you're building, catalog management into it. You're building payment into it. And then maybe in 2 years or in 3 years, you're done and become a fully online e-commerce, organization. So that's how you can do MVAs, leading you to MVPs. But I must also say that sometimes some industries may have that challenge, right? Which was traditional, but I think it's changing now. More importantly, telecoms, right? I think it's changing now with adoption of cloud and using of microservices. Things are changing now, so I think that will help to be able to, from MVAs to MVP.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I could see a thumbs up from Bukola. I think you have actually hit the nail on the head. All right. So guys, I know it's 7:01. We started a bit late. I've got 2 more questions that I just want us to round up to touch, and then from there we just round up. So we won't keep you much more than 10 minutes on the extra. Of course, we started about 5 minutes after the hour. Now, there is a question from Shegun here. He's working on a massive SAP project. And his question is around the role, right? There is a role that is called integrator. And there's a role that is called architect. You see this flying all around. It's just asking, is there a relationship between an architect and an integrator, right? Or if there is any, just short, sharp answer to that, because I don't want us to get into that.
Yeah. Good question also. Yes, these are 2 different roles and they are part of the Agile team, actually. So the architects designs, the integrator is responsible for building, right? So put it simply to say he gets his hands dirty, right? To do the, maybe do the coding and put all those components together, right, to realize it. But then the architect will stand in that place to guide, to provide the guidance, to provide the design approach of how the integrator will implement. So that's the handshake between them. There are 2 different roles.
Okay, good. Well, that's very good. Straight to the point. Peter, that's the last question we're going to take today. Peter Honest is saying that when you talk about architect, now his mind goes to the person who is trained to design and construct building. So he's talking about the architect now, construction architect. Yeah. How do you differentiate that from what you're talking about?
Good question. That's a very good question. And yes, and that was why, when I started, I used buildings, right? the horse, the log cabin and all that, because that's the way it's easy that way for us to relate, when we talk about architecture. So architecture, like I described it earlier, it just shows us how you put things together, building blocks together to realize the whole solutions and features. So yes, so there are building architects, like said, right? So they are responsible for building, raising buildings and all that. That word architecture came from that practice. Before it was adopted, I think in the 70s or so, into software design and all that. So typically saying software design is more like software architecture. Maybe a fancy way of saying we're doing something great, actually.
All right, if you don't mind, in 1 minute, let's just add this last question from Olatunde Obabumi. That's my old friend. Said, what are the architectural challenges for Agile, if there is any? The challenges for architectures.
Oh, yes. I mean, one of those was what the question Bukola asked about how you can get MVAs, right? How you can evolve, envision architecture in a modular, with a modular approach. That's one of those challenges. And that's why it requires understanding, from the business perspective, which the product owner comes to, understanding the requirement of the product owner, clearly, and see how you are able to, evolve them. Evolve the solutioning or the design or the architecting in an evolutionary way, evolutionary design, whereas you can see how you can meet an immediate need whilst you continue to increment, your architecture. So that's some of the challenges, to be able to understand the requirements of the product owner and to be able to build it into those incremental architecture.
Thank you so much. You can read more about that or learn more about that. Of course, you can connect with Shegun. You can connect with Shegun because on LinkedIn and take this conversation further. You can scan the code on the screen. Of course, search for his name on LinkedIn. He's very active on LinkedIn. We share a lot of insight when it comes to architecting and Agile. So please go into that as well and meet up with him. I hope that's fine by you for them to bug you with questions. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Thank you so much. This is very, very informative. Very, very informative. Again, thank you and thank you and thank you. So I'm just going to quickly round up just to share a few more information, and then we take it from there. In the month of May, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, your screen is visible here.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Yeah, so we'll be welcoming Scott Ambler. Scott Ambler is one of the co-founders of Discipline Agile. So Discipline Agile is the Agile arm, of the PMI, the Project Management Institute, and the guy that put all of that together, that toolkit together, is coming to speak with us. That is going to be a massive one. And so if you want to know anything about Discipline Agile, who else can we talk to? I'm a practitioner, but this guy is one of the originators. So in May, we'll be welcoming him. It will be in a session like this to really talk about applying Discipline Agile and becoming a learning organization. How can you help your organization to become a learning one? So I just want to say, May event is all about this. So don't miss it for any reason. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. Now, it's about time that we need to do one of the things that I like to do. I like us to take a group picture so that we can have something to really look at when we look at how the sessions have gone. So if you can just pop your video on, that would be good, so that we can just take a snapshot on the screen, and then that will help us. So if you can just do that, that will be
okay. Pete, you want to take down the slide?
Okay, I can do that. I can do that. So that's.
And switch it to gallery view, I believe. That would help you capture everybody.
All right. Where am I? Gallery view. Oh, yeah, good. All right. So if you can pop in your video, people are doing that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'll just take. Okay. Just 1 minute. I'll be done. I'll take one more so that I can completely take everyone. All right.
Do I have enough time to put on some makeup?
It's actually a large group today. We got, at some point we had about 32 people. So that's great. Let's see how we can make this community better. Please, offline conversation is also permitted. Chat me up, chat Shegun up. Patrick is here, is a massive supporter of our group. Shegun is here, Shegun Fatoki, Shegun Sanyolu. Please, let's keep talking and reach out to me if you really need to discuss anything Agile. I think I can answer any question in Agile, and if I can't answer it, I know who to go to. I know who can answer your question. So please reach out, and I'm here to help you. We're all here to help each other. So again, reach out to me on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn if you have not connected, and then let's take it further. So I know it's 10 past the hour, and I just want to close now. A massive shout out to Shegun Sayolo for bringing this out to us today. And then most likely we'll give April a go because of Easter, and then we're going to convey in May. We'll convey in May. So enjoy the 1 month holiday for us, and then in May, well, but in April, what we are going to be doing is we're going to be doing a massive, promotion towards the May meetup. So I'll see you guys in May, and have a fantastic time.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
One more
Thank
thing,
you.
the recording is going to be up very soon, and I'm going to share the information very soon.
All right.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.
All
Good
right.
job, Pete. Talk
Thank
to you
so
later.
much. Yeah.
All right.
Bye.